God forgave them. Maybe I should read that verse before I go any further. You might be confused about why did God kill them then. Verse 20, then the Lord said, I have pardoned according to your word. So they repented. They were ready to go back up and fight and die. They repented, God forgave them. Then it also says, God slaughtered them. Moses was asking, will you slaughter them like one person? What was Moses' concern? The next layer of the onion? He was not worried about the people dying. 2 million or 1/3 of 2 million at least. What he is concerned about, what Egyptians are going to say about you, God. Maybe in the back of his mind, I am the leader. What the people are going to say about me, if you kill everybody here if you read 1 Corinthians 10:5, it is established. God really got mad, regardless of God pardoning them or their repenting. Nevertheless, most of them, God was not pleased, for their dead bodies were spread out in the wilderness. If you read that and then try to understand, you might think God was like lurking behind every shadow, with a spear or something, and as soon as you see somebody, kill him. And then he walks over to the other side, kill the other guy. So he kept doing it for 40 years until all the people were killed, spread out the dead bodies. Isn't that we are taught? The 10 men who spied and discouraged the people, and God got mad and killed everybody. He said, as long as I live, none of you are going to enter the land of Canaan. He kept his promise. There was like 1/3 of 3 million versus 3 people. Moses, Aaron is always flip-flop. Not this Aaron, but the other. He finds an opportunity to make a golden calf, he'll do it for them. He always serves the people. So don't worry about Aaron. At least Moses, Caleb, and who was the other guy? Remember the name? Joshua. There were 3 people on one side, and the entire rest of the congregation, so the majority was overwhelming, and they have to be right. But here is one thing where the majority did not turn out to be right. 40 days of spying we read, and therefore God said, you will wander for 40 days until all those who are aged 20 and above will die, except this. Moses did not get an opportunity because of something else. Joshua and Caleb would go, the rest will not. Now let's peel another layer of this onion. Why was God angry? Didn't they made a mistake. They repented. God forgave them. Why was God angry? The question is, those 12 people who sinned, except the 2, did not fulfill God's desire. God had a purpose. This is where you're not going to like what I'm going to say further. Why was God angry? Why were the 12 sinned? This is the point that you need to focus on. Did they overstep? I have some bullet points up there. Maybe they misunderstood their purpose. What did Lord say in chapter 13, verse 1? Let's go back and read it again. Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. There was no doubt. The reason why they were sent was to familiarize how the land is, whether there is forest, the men are strong, or strongholds, or whatever that may be. But the one thing that was sure, which I am giving to you. Was there a doubt in that statement? But they came back and said, we cannot conquer the land. We cannot enter. They misunderstood the purpose. Going through this, you're human beings. So you're human, so you tend to remember things that happens to you, the words that are spoken. As I said, words matter, big deal. This misunderstanding thing, I was thinking about it. Many of us misunderstand too, quite often. If I take out my mask and put it here, somebody is going to be offended. Poor Noah, he not only has a big body, he has a big lungs and a big heart too. And he needs a lot of air. Down there, David, he's a marathon runner. He takes a lot of air. And once in a while, if I remove my mask while singing or while breathing, am I not entitled for a breath of air? Why should you be offended for that? I mean, I'm sure nobody on the Zoom is offended, but while I'm singing, if I remove my mask for a breath, why should you be offended? Anyway, some do get offended. If you're not among you, that's fine. But this is where the problem, and then, we bend over backwards to accommodate people, we even risk offending people in telling them, if you want to remove your mask, come up to this podium and speak. Don't use those mics because they are off limits. Why? To make people feel comfortable and strengthened and courageous to come out and be together. That's what the Lord says. But you know what they misunderstand? This is a misunderstanding, I say. They feel we were wrong and they were correct and we stand corrected. We were corrected. Then that's their satisfaction over the whole issue. That's a serious misunderstanding. We are bending backwards to accommodate and make everybody comfortable so that we can join together. But Sannichayan knows this phrase. Shankaran is still on the coconut tree. He refuses to get down. If you come from Kerala, you're not. I'll explain in Malayalam. We used to have mono act competition in schools and colleges. And one of the famous things is there is an act, single person acting, and acting like a leper. It comes from a movie scene actually. And you will put, wheat dough on your body, color it black and white and blue and red and dull. Pretending you to be a leper. And then the song, there is a song that says, Pambugalku maalamunda, Paravagalku agashamunda, Manishyaputrana talajayikkan idamilla. Essentially it means snakes have holes and birds have sky, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. It's kind of biblical too. The title part of the song is, Chillu medayil irundanne kallariyirde. That means, you sitting on those glass houses, glass mansions, don't think about stoning me because this leper was wandering around the streets and they were throwing stones. One reason you shouldn't do that is because we are on the earth and we have a lot of stones to throw back at you. But you only have a few that you carried up there. So those who are on those glass houses, there's another movie story. I know you like stories, right? It's a story. The movie is called Narasimham, half man and half lion. That's the name of this movie. There is a judge, and he has a bright, intelligent son. And he is actually writing his administrative service exam or something. And at the end of the last day of the college, they had a college party. And there was booze involved, and there was somebody who murdered a man with a broken bottle of a wine bottle or something. And then conveniently hands over this bottle to this guy. So he is arrested with evidence. Now it so happens the judge was the father. He examines all the evidence and finally comes to the conclusion that his son is guilty. He sentences him for 10 years. And then the son goes to jail. When he comes back, after 10 years of sentence, then the judge, after sentencing him, sending him off to prison, he also vanished with his wife from that place where he was living. And once the son came back, he also came back. He's with his wife. And the son is still bitter. Dad, you didn't know that I wouldn't commit a murder like this? But the evidences were against you. So I had to do this. But it's regardless of what my convictions are. The son is very bitter. And the mother tells the son, you really don't know your father. You know what he did that day after sentencing you and you going to jail? He quit the job. We too went to a far distant place for the 10 years that you were in a prison cell, suffering. He decided to confine himself inside a single room for 10 years. He didn't come out of the room. He ate in a single aluminum plate. He spent his entire 10 years inside that room, just as you were suffering. The moral of the story is, you want to throw a stone at me for touching my mask or removing or breathing? Regardless if you're sitting in your comfy chairs in your home, put a mask on for 2 hours, regardless of where you're sitting, and then blame me for removing the mask while singing. There are people, I appreciate each one of you going through this struggle of putting this mask on and suffering through it. God will honor you. No one has. They are morally bankrupt if they point a finger at you. Then I don't apologize for saying this. None of you should think of doing that. We don't want to be a stumbling block. That's why we even force people. Lead by example, put your mask on, elder. But you misunderstand. This people misunderstood, coming back to the story. They were not sent to evaluate or estimate whether they can conquer this land. It was a land that was given to them. But they misunderstood. They went about evaluating their own capability and estimating whether we can conquer this land or not. You might be thinking, what does this mean? You're certainly an old God, but not mine. It's another story. Did you understand what I said? Misunderstood? I didn't see anybody nodding your head or anything. But there was a speaker, he had a long beard. That's why I removed my beard. He would go on, pulpits like this and give lectures for hours together. And he thought to himself, he's a great guy. So people fall asleep and whatever, he goes to one place, and then there was a man, a poor farmer sitting, where exactly John is sitting. He's not the farmer. But the speaker started speaking, gives out an eloquent speech. And then you're watching that guy, and he goes like this, finally, I found one person who agrees with me. So he goes, more evidences, and then he says. So this went on for a while, this way and this way. After 2-3 hours of lecturing, the man goes to the farmer and said, I saw you doing this and doing this, so you agreed with some of the things I said. And some of the things you didn't agree. So I tried to impress upon you with more reasoning. And he said, man, I did not understand a word that you said. Then why you were nodding like this and sometimes like this? He said, I'm a farmer. I had an old goat with a beard, and I lost it. And ever since I have been looking for him. The first time I saw you started speaking, standing at the pulpit, I thought, that's my goat. So I said, but then you changed the angle and continued speaking, No, you didn't line my coat. So he said, finally, what is your conclusion? That's what is there. You're certainly an old goat, but not mine. Anyways. Continuing with peeling off the onion, they were ready to go. Where do you see that? In 14 and 40. They said, they rose early in the morning and went up to the top of the mountain, saying, here we are, and we will go up to the place which the Lord has promised, for we have sinned. God said, don't go. God first said, go. They said, no, we can't. Now they say, yes, we will. God says, don't go. There is a statement that goes like this: nothing stands in the path of repentance. A repentant sinner is willing to sacrifice, and God says, no, I don't want you to sacrifice. Bad God. Let me ask you a question. If you are Moses, what would have been your argument for killing or not killing them? The fact is, God killed each one of them, about 20. Nobody went to the promised land. We know what Moses' argument was. He had similar experience with the golden calf a year ago. Aaron made one, and God was angry. God said, get out of me, leave me alone, let me kill them. And Moses argued the same way. What did he say at that time? Remember Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the promises that you made to them. Can you go back on your word? But here he says, what is the Egyptians going to say? You brought them out and you kill them now? Moses knew very well, God knows even better, that these people had been slaves in the land of Egypt for more than 200 years. 210. And they have seen, they have witnessed their own little babies being torn out of their hand and immersed into the Nile Delta, killed them. And they were tortured. They were under heavy burden. So these people are not in a position to fight and conquer. They're still not out of that mindset. They have a paralyzing fear which paralyzed them. So there is a justification for not believing that they can enter the land. You know the story, I won't spend time on the golden calf. Anyway, Aaron is involved, so I'll leave it as it is. So you can blame the spies for what happened. But Moses is worried about the name of God, or the reputation of his name. Is God incompetent? Inept? God couldn't take them over to the other side, so God decided to kill them all? What's our conclusion? In one of our oversight meetings, I mentioned this point. Unless you make the right diagnosis, you cannot decide the right treatment, and you can't expect right results. If you make the wrong diagnosis, Dr. Susan has made many, and she has prescribed the right treatment, and she got the right results. But if you make a wrong diagnosis, you're in trouble. So with this story, as we have been taught, as we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, God slaughtered them, spread their dead bodies. What kind of a God is that? After repenting, after they were willing to go to the land, they confessed, we have sinned. Still God says, no, I will kill you. Many a times we already talked about it. The leader Moses would be thinking at the back of his mind, what others would think about me. This is one of those major considerations that we all have. When we do something, not do something, it's important what others think. But much more than what others think about you, the thing that you should be worried about is, what is the right thing to do? That makes the whole difference in the whole game. Now these people declared, I can't do this. Forgive me. Don't forgive me. This all has something behind my back. I can't do this. Many people keep saying, I can't do this. I can't come to the chapel because there is spiritual apartheid. I will be killed. That's the same thing that the Israelites said when they were asked to go into the land. We are like grasshoppers and we will be annihilated in no time. I can't do it. But we know God is love. He's a compassionate God. He's a loving God. He's not a sadist. I acted a mono act earlier. God hiding behind, lurking behind the shadows with a spear and killing each one, and then that was my mono act. Do you think God was a sadist? That's what you would think if you read the 1 Corinthians 10:5. Their dead bodies were spread in the wilderness. His child. Many of you here are fathers and mothers. They do the worst thing sometimes. You can't even think of, could they say this? Could they do this? But they do. And how many parents here would want to kill their child? Regardless of, yesterday I mentioned this thing. One teenage girl had her phone. Her dad's name was saved under Satan because she didn't like him. She was molested. And mother's name was saved under Satan's mistress. Would that mother and father kill their child? This earthly parent, would you dare to even think about it? If not, this God who is all compassion, we sing it often. He created us in His image. What is the image of God? He has no image. That's the one thing He expressly told Jewish people. Never make an image to represent me. But you are, I am, a reflection of God's image, which is imageless. I'm an old goat, but not mine. I don't know whether you understand. I don't see any nodding of heads, so you might be thinking this. This is the fact. You are the reflection of God's image. You don't have an image of your own. You are a nothing. You are nobody. How many people would like to hear that? You are a nobody. Jacob was shown a vision when he was running away from Esau. He saw a ladder extending up to heaven. And this is the picture of a man, human being. Your head touching the heaven and your feet touching the ground. You are simply a conduit to transfer the heavenly grace to this earth. That's what you're created for. But we often think, I am Sharon, I am somebody. Right? You assume the image of something. You think you are something and someone. Then you lose that fact that you are just a conduit. You are just a ladder. And if the top of the ladder doesn't touch the heaven, you are of no use. Somebody climbs the ladder, will be dangling in the air and finally falling down. You won't get anyone anywhere. You want to help somebody? You want to connect somebody to God? Your feet has to be on the ground and your head touching heaven. That's what you're made for. When you assume another image other than the conduit, that's when you either, some people, when their existence is questioned, who you are, as I said, you are a nobody, they get offended. They aggressively fight back. Or they take a flight. They run away. That happens when you consider yourself as something. You are created in the image of the imageless. You don't have to fight or take a flight. You just need to surrender to His willing hands. You know what was wrong with the spies? They brought a true report. Every word they said is exactly as it was. This land is a land flowing with honey and milk. And the people are stronger. They were giants. There's so much forestry and so many fruits. 2 people had to carry that one bundle of grapes. That heavy. But one thing they finally said, which was detrimental. We are not able to go up against the people because they are too strong for us. That was an unwarranted conclusion. What is your conclusion? What is my conclusion? Can I do this? Or you still say, I can't do it? I don't see any one of us being, for 200 years in slavery and our children being, snatched out of our hands and killed in front of our eyes. Why are we paralyzed by fear? Are we paralyzed by fear? They lacked the confidence. It's a statement that says confidence is what you have when you don't know the problem. So if you really don't understand the problem, you have a lot of confidence. That's not what you're talking about. Lord says, the words that we read, 11, how long will these people reject me? And how long will they not believe me with all the signs which I have performed among them? Have you seen the miracles of God? Or you think you are surviving because of your own diligence? The mask saved you? Or the vaccination saved you? More than 50% of the people who are vaccinated fully are getting reinfected. I heard in Singapore, 85% of the people who are fully vaccinated is getting reinfected. Israel was the first country to be fully vaccinated. More than 65% of the people were infected. Does the vaccine save me? Does the mask save me? They want social distance, just not physical distance. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I got my vaccines, 2 of them, as soon as they were available. I booked the first appointment available. Because as I said earlier too, that's my passport of freedom. Last week I traveled to USA. If I had not taken the vaccine, I wouldn't be able to attend my niece's wedding. There's another one coming up in December 4th in South Carolina. We might see you there. No, you're going in March. That's all I took. I don't trust this. I don't trust the mask. I don't trust the physical distance. There is not enough scientific. Even I don't trust when they say asymptomatic transmission. When you are not sick, I don't think you can transmit anything. This is the way they sell the fear. I'm not political here. I'm just telling you my understanding. This is not elders collectively speaking. This is me speaking, okay? You can fire me afterwards. What happened to them? They didn't see the hand of God. I like this saying. If we leave everything in His hands, we will see His hands in everything. If we leave everything in His hands, we will see His hands in everything. But instead, we assume that we are something or somebody. We assume an image and with hands, so we take things into our own hands and start doing things which eventually will fail. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people be disrespectful? New KJV says, reject me, disrespectful to me. If you don't trust Him to carry you through, regardless of whether you die or not, whether you get sick or not, whether you suffer or not. If you don't trust Him, you are being disrespectful to Him. Because you have seen it all. Now, another layer of the onion. Was God insulted? If I am insulted, I take revenge. I come after you. Was God insulted? God is not a man to be insulted. But he has emotions. And the first emotion is love and compassion. He also has righteousness and the feeling of justice. Or was God seeking validation from the people of Israel? You have seen it all. You have seen what I can do. Now why don't you trust me? Seeking does God need validation from man? No. But the fact is, they were stuck in a box. They assumed an image and put themselves in that box. So they could not see anything. Though they have seen it all. When God visited Abraham and said, your children will be like the sand of the sea or seashore or stars of the sky. This is what happened. Lord said, come out of the tent. God could have spoken to him inside the tent and said, you remember the sky, you remember the thousands and millions of stars you see there? That was enough. But God said, come out. Now look at the sky. And you'll see the stars. You need to come out of the box. This narrow mentality of superficial physical reality. We all have this physical reality of what we are, how we can survive, how we can navigate through this. That's all matters to me. Is this a sum total of your life on earth? Or as I said earlier, you are a conduit, you are a ladder with your head touching. Become a channel. You need to elevate your posture. Inside a box, you're hunched down. You need to stand up. Life is not counted by the breaths we take. You want 1 million more breaths to be taken in this? Good. But by the moments in your life that took your breath away, I have used this quote earlier too. When you see certain things which takes your breath away, those moments are more important than how many total you take. And they didn't want to go in. They said, we can't. Except the 2. And this is what they said. If only we had died in the land of Egypt, which they can't do because they are already out. Or if only we had died in this wilderness. Now why did they die in the wilderness? We say God killed them, slaughtered them. But this is what they asked for. If only we had died in this wilderness. This paralyzing fear, sense of helplessness, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy for them. They wanted to die in the wilderness. They mumbled. They murmured, which took away the power to enter and conquer the land. We all know. We all have faith, right? Kind of faith. What does faith mean? Reality of God transcending the trauma of your fear. Big words, big deal. Reality of God transcending the trauma. You have a trauma inside you. You have a fear which is paralyzing. But God's influence should transcend that. Don't reduce yourself to your brain. That's psychology. Your brain tells you so many things, bipolar and this and that. Don't reduce yourself to the way you see yourself with the help of your brain, the assumed image. And don't reduce God to your brain's capability either. He's way, 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 way beyond that. Now the real question comes. Why do you think God allowed them or killed them or slaughtered them? Important. They lacked what it takes to enter. They said we can because they lacked the confidence. They lacked the faith. If the Lord has let them go, which they did against God's commandment, don't go, what happened? Moses said, now why do you transgress the command? Do not go up. Then what happens? But they presumed to go up to the mountaintop. Nevertheless, neither the ark of the covenant or the law of Moses did not depart from the camp. Amalekites and Canaanites who dwelt in the land came down and attacked them and drove them back as far as Hormah. That's what happened. Then why allow them to go and die a violent death at the hands of the giants? This is God's reasoning. They wanted to die in the wilderness because they confessed, we can't go. If God yet allow them to go, this is what happens. So the question arises, the last peal, was it really a punishment? If you read many other portions, you might think it is. But it was the natural consequence of their faith or lack of faith thereof. They didn't see themselves as the divine ambassadors. They were just supposed to obey what God asked them go. They were supposed to go. This is the most important conclusion. I fear to say this. I tremble when I say this. They have completed whatever they are capable of achieving in this world for Lord. Miserable thing. The Jewish people there proved, the men about 20, this is what I am capable of achieving. But the whole thing changes if you hand yourself over to God, become the divine ambassadors, become the channel, become the ladder. God is pained by their lack of faith, but God did not annihilate them. Think about it. When God created universe, says on the first day he created this thing by the word. How many seconds it takes to create by the word? Let it be done. Then you have 23 hours and 59 seconds and some left. What was God doing? You don't know. It's not mentioned. But if God wanted to kill them, in a snap of a finger, all those about 20 would have been fallen dead. God did not kill them. God actually took care of them, provided manna, provided water. Their dresses did not degenerate. Their sandals did not wear down. God took care of them. God walked with them for 40 years until they died, each one peacefully, probably in his sleep, and got buried. Think about it. God is not a sadist. God is not temper tantrums or anger management issue. He actually took care of them, and as they asked, confessed, this is all I can do. God said, okay, I'll be merciful. I'll be compassionate. Am I done what I can do in this world? Since the Lord could not bring his people to the land which promised them, again the word slaughtered comes out. I did some research. Slaughter means, that's a word that is usually used when you have animals being slaughtered for a sacrifice. And they also say the knife goes back and forth. It's not like, doom. Probably when Isaac was on top of the altar, Abraham would have taken the knife and drawn like this. The word actually means to draw. The draw means from the realm of animal life to human life, so that he identifies, the animal identifies with humanity and becomes the divine oneness. So the word slaughtered doesn't have to confuse you. God actually transferred them, elevated them from this level to the next level of divine fellowship, because they finished their task here. They could have entered the land if they were simply conduits. I said it many times. Joseph, he was not sold, but he was sent. We all know the story. He was not a victim, but a victor. Now, it's time for another story. You have all that you need in this world. Strength, resources, fellowship, wisdom, talent, creativity. And God is there, God of all power. What more you need? If you trust in Him, your obstacles become opportunities. Impossible become possible. Unfeasible become feasible. If you have faith, the difficult things become immediately doable. And the impossible takes a bit longer. That's all. There was a camel, a mama camel and a child camel in a zoo. Don't be personally offended. This is just a story. The little camel asked the mama, Mama, I have 3 questions. Okay, child. Shoot. First question. Why do we have this ugly feet with split two and a cushion-like bottom at the feet instead of when everybody has nice feet, with fingers and all the colored things. And Mama Camel says, Child, we are desert animals. We need this kind of strong and sturdy feet to conquer the desert land. We walk through hot sand and we survive because we have feet like this. Okay, what's the next question, child? Mama, why do we have ugly eyelids like flaps when everybody else has nice eyelashes and ding, ding, ding? Mama said, we are desert animals. We have sandstorms to face, and when the sand blasts, we use these flaps to cover our eyes. That's a protection. We are desert animals. We can't do that. Okay, what's the third question, child? Mama, why do we have this ugly hump on my back when every other animal has flat, good back? The horses have beautiful. Mama said, Child, we are desert animals. We can survive for weeks and months in a desert without eating and drinking water because we have it all stored here. No animals have it. Oh, that's great. We are specially, made. Then she says, Mama, I have a 4th and final question. We are equipped with all these things to conquer desert Sahara. We have this, we can survive for weeks, we can walk in the sand, we have eyelashes that can protect our eyes. But my question is, what are we doing here in the zoo? Shouldn't we be conquering the Sahara desert? If you add an M, the zoo becomes Zoom. Forgive me for saying this. What are we doing here? May God bless you. Aaron is ready with a hymn, so I will ask him to close the meeting in prayer and also lead us in the hymn.
Ethan and Jane, 346